We be fussing, we be screaming, but you the one I wanna lay beside this evening. I'm gonna come back, even when I'm leaving. You give good love, and I receive it. When you feeling down, I'ma sing to you. That ring on your finger got a ring to it. That's that real love, God-fearing love. It may not be how we dreamed it, but it's still love. Can we ever sit down? Talk to me nice, I'ma talk back, baby. You know how we get down. Yeah, the way we gon' work it out.
I am Pastor Julius, and this is my
Why
Lord.
not?
Because you just said my socks had a blue hue.
I saw that little dinge on them.
That's not dinge. That's your anyway. Oh, okay. So what's poppin'?
What up?
Dang, season 3.
Yes.
MMGA season 3 is in full effect, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, we have a new space. It's big lit over here. I'm excited. You feel comfortable in your chair? I really feel like a legit talk show host at this point. Oprah Winfrey, holler at me.
It's your marriage folk. We back at it again. You know,
It's for the marrieds, the singles.
it's for the singles.
Those who want to be married, those who have been divorced, those who
We just happen to
out
be
here.
married and we're able to speak to life from a married perspective.
All right.
You feel me?
some things
I mean,
don't
it's
change,
just
even in
it's-
season 3.
It's good. It's good. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're
Happy
here.
to be here.
So,
You-
can we just pause really quick and say happy birthday to the GOAT? Man, like, so this is coming out. All right. Okay. So, all right. Okay. Are you done or you gonna keep? Please don't do the look away pose. Please leave that to the really young men. You're like a GQ guy, so you have to do, Julius. Tap back in.
Okay.
Welcome back. Hi.
Hey.
This is Make Marriage Great Again, season 3. It's your birthday.
yeah, it is.
So how do you
I'm
feel
happy.
being they always say, like, how do you feel being another year older?
I feel good. Just don't say my age.
Okay. But you look really
Just know I
great,
got another year wiser.
but you look really good for your age.
I believe that. Thank you.
And so you don't want me to let the world know?
No.
I mean, are you in your 30s?
I want you to stop doing what you're doing
Are
and
you
move on.
Well,
Those
happy
who know, you
birthday.
know, IYK,
I
IYK.
It's if you know, you know. So it's
If
I
IYK, YK.
YK. There it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Uh-huh. Praise God. Well, I'm not ashamed of my age, so when it's my birthday next year, I'm going to be, let the world know, because black don't crack.
All right. Hey,
And I need everybody to know that I know I'm in my 40s, but baby, I look a good solid 27.
hey, handle it the way
So
you
our
wanna handle
sons the other day said that they gave you a really good age, though. They said that you look 35.
it. They did.
And I was like, that's bomb.
That's the bomb.
But
I
they didn't give
appreciate it.
me that.
I appreciated
They
that.
gave you 35.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. You look real good these days.
Thanks, boo.
You know,
I just try to keep it
I
together.
don't know if y'all paid any attention, but she about 20 or 30 pounds down
I mean,
from,
I have just,
from the last season.
been not eating.
You know, and I mean that's the only way. Let me help y'all here. The only way to lose weight
Is
is
not
to
eat.
enter into a caloric deficit.
That's it.
If anybody tells you anything different,
They're
they are
lying.
not telling the truth. The only way you're going to lose weight is you have to burn more calories than you consume.
I feel like everybody this season has changed. Our producer, David, has changed the opposite direction. So he was trying to bulk up and get all, hawk
Yeah,
on us.
yeah.
And so I've lost 30 and he picked it up.
He picked up 30 pounds.
Of muscle. Yeah, he has a goal of 200 and something pounds he wants to weigh.
I mean, business is good. These
That's what
days.
happens when-
I mean, his ankles is out.
Ankles is
quite
out.
frequently these days.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, hey, it is
That's
what
how
it is.
you know. That's how you know life is good, when you can wear loafers and high waters.
On a soft
When you
Monday
can do a Miami Vice look on a smooth Monday.
in Columbus,
You know you popping.
you thinking different.
You-
That means you're thinking different.
There it is.
You know.
In October.
Yeah,
That means you really are out here living your best life.
that means
you
you're
don't care
some-
about the elements
It means you're somewhere else.
mentally.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, it means you're somewhere else.
So speaking of somewhere else, our topic today is about
But you didn't finish with my birthday. You kind of just you left me. You didn't finish doing what you were doing.
What am I supposed to do?
Before the set, you told me you was gonna sing "Happy Birthday" to me.
You're a liar.
in front of the.
Yeah, I never said I was going to sing.
David.
David, did I
I gotta
ever say
pull
I was
you
going to
in.
sing? I never
Didn't
said
she
sing.
mention something about happy birthday, singing happy birthday?
I said I was going to say something too about his birthday. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow. So we're starting
Okay.
off season 3 great.
Okay.
David is on my side for a change. That
Okay.
never happens.
Okay.
So I never said I was going to sing. Would you like me to sing?
Can you?
You know, I really can't sing though.
It's okay. It's just the gesture.
So
That's what means more than a note.
which rendition would you like? Because
I
there's multiple.
Warm your voice up. Do, re, mi,
No.
fa,
When I say
sol.
rendition, I mean like what happy birthday do you want? Do you want
Oh.
the old school churchy one? Oh, happy birthday. Or do you want the traditional happy birthday? Or do you want the Stevie Wonder happy birthday to which
No,
one?
I want the old school traditional one.
The old school church traditional one?
No, just the
Just
regular.
the regular one. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, my dear boo. Pastor Julius my Rashad Lancaster. I threw that in for free. Happy birthday to you.
I appreciate that, baby.
You're welcome.
All right.
You can sing on mine, but you can really sing, so then that doesn't really count. I only can sing when Jesus has hit my vocal cords.
And when, never mind.
Watch your tone. Because there's certain times during service or prayer where I actually can carry out
That's a fact.
an alto tune.
That's 100% fact.
When the spirit has lifted, so has my voice.
All right.
Then I'm back to,
All right.
don't do that.
No, it's good.
Don't do what you're doing.
Everything's good.
That's fine. Now can we talk about
Yeah, we can.
how we're going to, so speaking of new ages.
How we gonna?
How we're going to transition.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to talk about today, which I think is a good topic for season 3. Season 3 is a huge transition for us. We have a new set. We're going through a whole lot of things personally in dealing with transition, with moving and all of this stuff. The boys are in transition. They went to new grades. They had to go to new schools. That was a transition. So I feel like starting off season 3, as y'all know, we like to bring y'all into our world and be as transparent as possible. And I think talking about transition in life is one thing, but then talking about transition in a marriage and how to handle transition in a marriage is a whole nother thing.
It's a whole nother thing. And I would say this too. I think honestly, y'all, just truth be told, like life ain't as linear as what we
Man, life ain't linear at all.
like to think it is.
No.
You know what I
Heck
mean?
no.
How we try to maybe put things together might be linear, but the reality is that life ain't as linear as what we think. And what that means is that means it's a lot of ebbs and flows. It's a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
Like life is transitional.
My
Period.
homegirl said to me, healing wasn't linear. A transition for us in this past season is my father was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. That was a crazy transition for us.
It was.
And he's doing fine, and he's going to live, and he's going to be well. But when I was talking to her about his chemo and things of that nature, excuse me, I told her I was really upset, honestly, with God on how in the world could this happen to me, right? I'm out here pastoring, which is already hard enough. I'm being a wife, and I'm raising kids, and I own businesses. Like, why is it fair that I have to go through this? And then why is it fair that why does healing look this way? And she flat out told me, she said, Tay, healing's not linear. Meaning healing doesn't look the way that you want it to look, or it doesn't go just like down this line where you take this pill and then tomorrow you're fine. Healing has its ebbs and flows. Healing has transitions too. So when you say the word linear, like it just hits home because transition isn't linear.
And I think too, like literally, we're in transition so much as people.
Bro, all the time.
I think we forget we're in transition, and we stop labeling transition as transition because
It's just life.
It's just life. And so when we say things like life just be lifing or those types of things, really some of what we're communicating is that there's been transition happening. Like
Yeah.
we're literally like we're transitioning jobs, we're losing loved ones,
Yeah.
we're changing relationships, we're
It's a constant.
going from sobriety to addiction, from addiction to sobriety. Like
Yeah.
we're having babies. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Some of us unfortunately might be losing loved ones or children. Like it's all this transition happening
All the time.
all the time.
I think about though transition. Transition is transmission. You think about like a transmission in a car. Transmission in a car, it's just constantly shifting up or it's shifting back down. And as long as you're driving, your transmission is at work. The only time that you stop transitioning is when you've made the final transition. And that's when you're no longer here. And now we know as believers, we have another transition after that transition, which would be eternity. But even then, I think about like transition and transmission. You're either transitioning upward or you're transitioning back down. And it speaks to the ebbs and the flows. It speaks to the EKG it's always up, down, up, down. It is a constant, that is what life is. It is a constant transition. If you ain't transitioning, you're probably not alive.
So I mean, even when you die, you've
Transitioned.
You know what I mean? So even that's a transition.
So transition basically is just going from one state to the next.
Right, it is. And so like, but I think like when we think about all of this transition, so I think first of all, we got to come to a point to where like we realize we probably won't be in one relationship. We probably won't just have one job.
See that's hard.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Because me and you are married. I don't allow my mind to think about, like I was praying for you the other day because you know you're getting older and your birthday and stuff, and I am always very specific on your health and how
Yeah.
old I want you to be.
well, so I don't mean
I don't want to think about my transition of you or I not being here.
well, I don't mean that. I think that's more of a thought of just realizing that death is part of life.
That's transition though.
It is, but what I'm talking about is just everybody still living, but transition still happening. So
Okay, all right.
you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, you probably won't have one relationship. There's an opportunity that best friends will change. You know what I'm saying?
Bro, what?
There's a chance that employers will change.
Your business will change.
Your church home might change. Your business approach might change. Your business partners might change.
Your spouse's personality is going to change.
Yeah, and in some instances, your spouse might change.
Dang.
Right? We're talking about let's make marriage great again. And in some instances, your spouse might change. And so when you go into it with an adjusted mindset about transition, it's almost like you come to the realization that just like death is a part of life,
Yeah.
transition is a part of life.
I don't think we teach it well, and I think that's why we don't handle it well.
I agree.
I don't believe that transition is taught well in any form, whether it's in education or whether it's the church world. I think about, your brother. I think about how the university he went to, in my opinion, they didn't teach transition to those young men well. And so what happened is that they only taught one way. And so when that one way doesn't happen, a lot of young men don't know how to handle the transition.
Wow. So I think you bring up a great point. And the great point is what if the way where you thought you were going to transition to, when it comes time to transition, doesn't look the same.
Man. And that,
you know what I'm saying? And so what happens is now that even becomes a transition, because
you got to transition your mind.
You got to transition your mind to realize that whatever it is you thought you was getting ready to transition to don't quite look like what you had thought you've been preparing for.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? And so when you talk about transition not necessarily being taught well,
or it's not talked about, even in marriage. So that when you were like, well, no, I wasn't talking about like marriage. I was just talking about you might not have the same relationship. But to go back to that, even when we're talking about marriage, we don't talk or teach transition. What happens if your spouse passes away? What happens if you're not married to the same person? What happens? It's almost, and I remember you telling me this. You said, well, Ashante, the reason why coaches in general, whether it's big universities or little universities, the reason why they don't prepare these young men for these other transitions is because if they do, their mind will no longer be on the goal or the prize of the professional making it to the pros. The minute I start thinking about preparing for something else, you're basically telling me that almost like your physical body follows.
It almost, what happens is this is what I believe. I believe that by preparing for transition to potentially even look like something different than what you've been preparing for, I think there's a school of thought out there that would almost make it appear as if I'm preparing for potentially something different than what I've been preparing for, then it almost makes it seem like I'm diminishing or diluting the goal. And so what happens is we say stuff. I've heard people say things like this: nah, it's only one goal. It's only one mission. And so while I do understand the importance of prioritizing stuff, and making sure you keep the main thing and all of that, I think there's validity to that. You know what I'm saying? And so like you got to be focused. But at the same time, can you be so focused that you lose focus? And what I mean by lose focus of the reality of what's really happening around you. You've been 100%. So focused that you lost focus.
I think that what you're saying is 100% true. I think that it's both and. You absolutely need to keep the main thing, but the process in which the main thing is achieved is called transition. So if the main thing is I want a successful business, right? You have a benchmark of $1 million. I want my business to make $1 million in 2024. I believe that is the main thing. What happens is that the way that we started to obtain the $1 million gets jolted or gets changed, and we don't deal well in that transition. We almost then associate that with not being successful. And it's like, no, the main thing is still $1 million business. It's just you have to now deal with these transitions, and in transition, learn how to pivot. Because even in sports and basketball, our sons play ball. You're in transition. You got to pivot. You got to learn how to move. The coach may have drawn up a play, and you may come down and the defender did something that wasn't on the play. The goal is still to score. But I can't have this defender, because he's here now, I have to say, oh, well, and now I can't score. Now scoring is not a possibility. Scoring is absolutely still a possibility. We have to learn how to, in the moment, we have to learn how to manage the transition.
So basically, transition is incremental.
100%.
So whereas the ultimate goal of getting from one place to another remains the same.
Yes.
That's the ultimate transition.
That doesn't, for me, the goal doesn't need to change. I mean, unless you need to reset them.
And you think about it. You think about, like, if we're going to stay in that same kind of train of thought from an athletic perspective, you think about now they got what they've called the transfer portal.
Come on, prime time.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so what happens is a lot of these guys have the goal of, going to the pros.
Yes.
And in basketball, it could mean overseas, NBA, football, it could mean, NFL. They have this ultimate goal of being a professional.
Yeah.
But in the midst of becoming that, they got to make these transitions.
Yeah.
I was at this school,
Man.
but I need to make a pivot, and I need to make a transition to another school, and then maybe even that school might not work out, but I need to make a transition to another school. But my end goal is still in mind, which is to be a professional athlete.
But there's so many young men and young women who that never happens because it's never taught.
And you know what? You know what happens? Here's what we say. They get lost
in the sauce.
In transition.
Or lost in, they do. That is an absolute saying.
Yeah.
They got lost in transition.
Yep.
Let me tell you why it's so crazy. You think about singing, and in singing, there's transitions.
Yep.
You see choir directors do something like this, and it means that we're getting ready to transition. We're getting ready to go from one part of the song to the next.
Yeah.
If you are not ready, if you don't see the hand signal, if you've not been practicing or prepared, and the transition comes upon you, you'll still be stuck on what was and not in the new part.
You'll be stuck in the old and not prepared for the new. And I think being prepared for transition is critical.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times what they would do, this is kind of a little bit back in the day because the quarterback position has changed.
Indeed.
But it used to be what was considered a quote unquote pro style quarterback.
Yeah.
Which means that they would prepare you to be able to make the transition well.
Yeah.
They would teach you your 7-step drop, your 5-step drop, your
Yeah.
arm strength had to be at a certain rate. All of these things that helped you make the transition well. Same thing for defensive backs and linebackers and all of that. They prepare you for the transition.
Yeah.
And most times people who aren't able to sustain or maintain the new state that they're in is because the transition was too tough for them. When they get to the NFL, the game is too fast.
Too fast.
When they
Yep.
get to the NBA, the game is too fast. It's too athletic. They weren't able to make the transition well.
So let me ask you this question then. When it comes to transitioning, we're talking about transitioning in life, transitioning in marriage, then should there then be conversations inside your relationship with your significant other, with your spouse, in regards to the transition? And trying your hardest to plan. Now we know transitions happen suddenly. People die suddenly. People lose jobs suddenly. So sometimes I feel as though you may be taken aback. But for the most part, do you feel as though we can plan in our relationships for transitions?
Well, so yes, and I would say that I think it's a couple of things that need to happen. And I think we'll be able to probably touch on a little piece of it in this one, and then you guys will have to make sure that you tap into the next
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be 2
episode
episodes for sure.
for the next one. You like that? That's a little,
You
transition.
Transition.
But
Oh,
but
shoot.
what I'm saying is I think it's 2 things that need to happen to answer your question. I think we need to learn how to do 2 things.
Okay.
I think we need to learn how to survive,
Yeah.
and I think we need to learn how to thrive.
In the transition.
So, and I think we'll be able to maybe just for a brief moment tap, into some of the survival tactics of transition today.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And so when you think about transition, most of the times people die in transition. When we bring it home, we're pastors.
The children of Israel.
The children of Israel, a lot of them died
In transition.
In transition. They were unable to get to the new space that God had for them
100%.
because they weren't prepared to receive everything that God had for them. So they weren't able to survive the transition.
Wow.
Do you know what I'm saying? And so when you think about first of all, survival 101, we got to survive out here.
And that's what I'm saying then. And you make a good point when it comes to the children of Israel. I think about there were things supplied to them in order for them to survive the transition. There was manna. There was things that God made sure, and this is crazy because this is even, I'm thinking about my own life. God made sure that they had, what's the word that you love to use all the time? Sustenance for them to survive transition.
To be sustained.
What they didn't want that. They didn't necessarily want what he had for them to be sustained in transition.
Here we go.
They wanted to what they used to eat.
Here we go.
In order to, and it's like, well, hey, listen, because you've transitioned from this place to the next place, you can't eat that anymore. You have to, I'm giving you what it is that you need to survive in this season of transition. A lot of us don't survive the transition is because we're trying to go backwards and maybe still have a diet of what was the old season's diet.
So we're trying to feast on a wilderness diet in the promised land.
Period. Well, they weren't in the promised land yet. They were in transition.
But when they got there,
yes,
a lot of them were trying to still eat
they were
what
absolutely
God was providing in
then.
the wilderness.
So there was a couple of transitions. So you had the transition when they came out of Egypt, and then you had they had a diet there that Pharaoh provided for them. And then when they were in the wilderness experience, they were complaining about the old diet. Then they got from wilderness, the ones that survived, to the promised land, and then some of them had a promised land diet trying to go back to the wilderness. So it's like with each transition, there was complaints.
So I can't even do that right now. I can't do that right now.
Welcome back to season 3. Come on.
I can't do that right now because I feel like that's part of the thriving piece.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Right.
So survival.
So the surviving piece.
Yeah.
The ones who weren't able to make the trip.
Dang.
You know what I'm saying? The ones who God said, hey, look, y'all ain't able to go. And watch this. Here's the crazy part, is their leader wasn't able to make the transition.
Dang.
God told Moses, you can't do it. You're not able to get over there. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to survive.
Lord, now I done made it. All these people when they came out, you're going to tell me I can't go.
Yeah, you're not able to survive this transition. And so I think like being able to survive the transition, I think a lot of it is predicated upon our connection and our obedience to the directions that God has given us in the season that we're in.
100%. That there is no chance of survival without it. I know it's an absolute, and I don't like speaking in absolutes, but there is your chance of survival in the middle of transition in any season without the instruction from God. You're probably not going to make it.
So your chance of getting to your next is predicated upon your obedience of your now.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's like almost those same situations will keep presenting themselves
Over and over and over again.
over and over again. Children of Israel, 40 years.
So when you ask yourself, why do I have to keep going through the same thing? You probably should revisit the instructions and directions that were given to you in your season of transition and ask yourself, am I applying it?
Am I listening? Am I obeying? Am I following instructions precisely so that I can position myself and to be able to get to whatever God has for me next? Because it's almost like unfair to expect to be able to get to another when you didn't complete the initial task. It's like survive. What is the reality TV show? Survivor.
Yeah.
You can't get to your next until you complete.
They have like certain tasks and stuff they have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's tough to even really integrally expect to be able to go to what's next.
Integrally expect?
Yeah. When you didn't even complete the instructions of your now.
Okay. Listen, we're going to have another episode on this because Pastor Julius has entered into the chat, and this is a great conversation, though. I think it's something that's very necessary when talking about just transition, but when you're beginning to talk about transition in a marriage.
In a marriage.
And how to survive it and how to thrive in it.
Yep. And I think it's like being open to the fact that what you're transitioning to might look a little different
than where you came out of.
Than A, what you came out of, and B, what you thought you was going into.
See that?
I think you got to be open.
I'm not ready for that.
To that. Because what does that mean? And I think we really agree to it without knowing what it means. Because I got married to one woman in 2012.
Don't bring up all the other people you've been married to.
But not really considering the fact that during the course of my marriage, I'd encounter, different women.
Same here. I've encountered.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But so I
as long as
think
it's even.
we open ourselves up to transition, not really knowing that we opened ourselves up to transition. When we said yes in marriage, we opened ourselves up to transition. We don't really have a license to get lost in transition on purpose because what we transition to don't look like what we thought it was.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to follow us immediately.
Immediately.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
On Instagram.
Yeah.
And our Instagram is
MMGA Podcast. I almost forgot, y'all. Jesus.
See, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Welcome back to season 3.
And on Facebook is Make Marriage Great Again Podcast.
And on YouTube, it is
Make Marriage Great Again.
Marriage Great Again podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost forgot you.
Listen, we're gonna knock some of this rust off.
We tap back in.
I'm tapped all the way back in.
know?
It's season 3. It's his birthday. I'm feeling good, and we right back like we never left.
Like we never left. So go subscribe, follow, click,
All of the things.
share, invite your friends,
All of
invite
the things.
everybody because it's back popping.
I'm really excited about season 3. It's about to go down.
Yeah,
I think it's the set. It's doing something to me.
It's the newness.
It's the newness.
You know,
it's the transition.
Yeah, the results of transition.
But some things remain the same.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you guys the next time.
Peace, y'all.
Talk to me nice, I'ma talk back, baby. You know how we get down. Yeah, the way we gon' work it out.
I am Pastor Julius, and this is my lovely wife.